I asked you all over on my Discord who your favourite character was to both play and face, who you find the most fun. For each side I got a percentage of likes to play and a percentage of don't like to play. Today I wanted to combine these to try and figure out which character is favoured for both sides. Let's get into it. Skull Merchant, 20.8%. Unsurprisingly, she comes in the lowest here. Merchant has such a questionable and unclear design that it's honestly hard to have fun. Even with her most recent rework, she just feels quite empty and dull now to me. Although not reliant on 3 gens, she feels lacking, a bit like someone like Freddy. Not for me, and that seems to be the general consensus. But hey, there is still a small portion of people that like to play her, and an even smaller that like to face her. Trickster, 28.6%. This is another placement I understand, and honestly, I barely see Trickster nowadays. His power is fairly simplistic and repetitive. It ends up not being fun for either side, I think, as it's often just very random how effective it is. It's a messy power, and that inconsistency doesn't feel good, I think. Clown, 30.2%. Clown is probably my least favourite overall in terms of fun for both sides. I find him to be very lacking in terms of fun. Being slowed down in games is never fun really, and doing the slowing down just feels unrewarding, I find. Freddy, 34.8%. Freddy nowadays is pretty dull all round. He has nothing really going for him with his power, and nothing overly engaging with his primary ability that makes survivors go slightly slower on loops. His fake palettes offer a unique type of gameplay, but they're also pretty bad. Freddy is just so and for me, playing as him at least, I only get some fun from the challenge he has from being fairly weak. Hag, 35.7%. Hag is one of the lowest played characters, and I do understand why. She's strong, but a lot of the time just very boring, with her power encouraging you to camp or tightly hold down an area. It's just not a very engaging power. I can have occasional fun playing as her, but I often just find myself somewhat stressed, with her power requiring you to upkeep your web of traps very efficiently. Facing her can just feel too punishing sometimes, with the jump scares and instant downs becoming repetitive. Nurse, 38.2%. Nurse is rated fairly low, and I kind of get it. She's very strong and so is often relatively boring, with her gameplay barely changing throughout the years. As a nurse, it can feel a bit too easy, and facing one is either you get steamrolled or the nurse is new and you steamroll them. Matches against her particularly are rarely fun, I find. Spirit, 42.6%. Spirit is rated fairly low here. I've always found her incredibly boring, to be honest, with her power feeling unrewarding to do well with due to its lack of counters, and facing her for the same reason just feels very unengaging because there's nothing you can do a lot of the time to avoid an attack. Knight, 46.7%. Knight, I think, is in this weird kind of in-between space where he's just fine and unique enough that most people can tolerate both playing and facing him, but nothing stands out as fun really. Personally, when I play Knight or face Knight, I just feel very neutral about the game as a whole, and usually I get my fun from those games from the perks I run over interactions with the other side. Cenobite, 48.5%. Pinhead is a character I didn't expect to see so low. I honestly find him pretty fun to play, as he offers a rather unique playstyle. I also feel somewhat similar when facing him because, again, it's a different kind of game you get into when facing a Pinhead. I do understand that the chains can be frustrating though when facing him, and his technical aspects when playing as him can also make him pretty frustrating. Trapper, 53.5%. We're finally into the ones people like more than they dislike. Trapper got a very low rating for people that like to play as him, and I think it largely comes down to him just being so weak and just instantly at a disadvantage. It's not very fun to be there every game. Facing him got a relatively okay rating, and I pretty much agree. Whilst playing a largely M1 focused character can be pretty fun, I do think his traps can often feel annoying and a bit too sudden a lot of the time, which can make it unfun, so a balance. Twins, 55%. Twins seem pretty middle of the road, which I agree with overall. For me, they are just unique and interesting enough that they can be fun, but equally they have so much about them that is clunky or poorly designed that it makes that uniqueness often fizzle out and become quite annoying or boring quickly. Plague, 58.7%. Plague is a character who seems quite favoured to play, but people really don't like facing her, and it's probably because of the whole always being injured thing, which I do understand. It's definitely different and can be intimidating. I do think playing her is fun, and she's one of those characters where, because games can play so differently each time, she is lots of fun to learn, with needing to adapt to situations quickly. Doctor, 59.4%. Doctor is a character that seems quite favoured to play as, likely because the shocks and more regular gameplay can feel consistent with the right amount of difficulty. Facing him, I think people don't like purely because it can be annoying with how madness works at times. The constant screams, skill checks, and so on. Bubba, 59.7%. Bubba is a character I personally find much more fun to face than I do to play, but here he's ranked pretty equally for both sides. I think it's really just dependent on how the Bubba plays. Playing as him, I do think you need to somewhat make your own fun, and the same goes for facing him, as his actual power isn't that complex. Billy, 63.6%. Billy is maybe one of the clearest cases where people very much enjoy facing him, but really do not like playing him. I'm kind of in the same boat here, as I find him just way too punishing to play, particularly with the current day maps. However, facing one is often a good time, particularly if the player is decent. Artist, 67.2%. Artist is a character in a bit of a strange spot here. She's quite strong, but equally I do think she has fair counterplay for the survivor side. Playing as her can mechanically be tricky too, which personally makes her a little more fun for me. This placement largely depends on how you play, I think. I do think a lot of artists out there mainly use her power for close anti-loop, which is fair enough, but can be a little less fun. Wraith, 67.2% also. Wraith is a pretty middle-of-the-road character for me, and embodies the closest I can think of default Dead by Daylight gameplay. I never find a Wraith game particularly thrilling on either side, but it's always just fine, I find. I do definitely agree he is more fun to play than he is to face. He gets the benefit of some cool add-ons and lots of speed when cloaked, which can be fun. Legion, 68.6%. Legion is a character I thought would be a lot lower, but I guess lots of people like them. I personally find their speed when I use them lots of fun, and being able to traverse maps differently too. I also like when facing them that you can do more plays around windows and using their ability to fast vault against them, moving behind them and using line of sight techs is fun. Huntress, 69%. Huntress is a character I thought would be higher, to be honest. Maybe there's some more boredom coming from her power nowadays after we've had it for so long. With that said, it's still quite clearly liked a lot. Huntress is the simplest ranged character, but is one that was done well and is very balanced when it comes to her gameplay, which I think often translates to fun. Sadako, 69.4%. Sadako I think has probably dropped a bit in fun since her rework, especially to face her. She's become much more frustrating to face, I would say, particularly with some of the condemn builds available. Playing as her is more fun than before, I would say, and personally I do enjoy it quite a bit. Myers, 71%. Myers as a character has always been pretty loved because his gameplay is quite different, with how he stalks and builds up to tier 3, which I do think is pretty fun for both sides, although for different reasons to more regular Dead by Daylight gameplay. Myers also gets some bonus points too, I think, for the different add-ons and subsequent playstyles he can have, which can mix things up and make things fun. Pig, 72.6%. Pig is a character that has consistently been memed for her constant nerfs and lack of strength, but has always been pretty liked by the community on both sides. I actually expected her playside would be considered more fun, but I think the overall numbers are pretty much in line with how I find her. She has enjoyable elements like her ambush and stealth, but things like the bear traps can be frustrating at times for both sides, but equally tense and engaging at others. Xenomorph, 73.4%. Xeno is interesting with it being one of the newer characters. These stats really encapsulate the general community feeling I get from Xeno currently, that it's super fun to play, but it can be very annoying to face, with its tails sometimes feeling unfair and hard to dodge or know when to move. I get why people don't enjoy facing it. Deathslinger, 75.9%. Deathslinger is actually a character I was pretty surprised to see so high. I remember just a few years ago ago he was really hated, particularly to face. I think as time has gone on though, he's grown on many people. Nowadays I think he has a very fair power, with enough counterplay to face, and enough to learn to outplay the survivors. It's just fun, and partly because the literal power of a spear gun that reels you in is just a cool concept. Ghostface 77.8%. Ghostface is pretty widely loved, and I think it's because he's probably the stealthiest stealth character. This makes his gameplay feel very unique and often very tense. The way he moves, crouching and leaning, makes the game a lot more interesting for both sides, and provides lots of fun moments to be had. Singularity 78.9%. Hux is relatively new and doesn't seem too popular in terms of people actually playing as him, but despite that, he does seem to be viewed as fun. Hux has a very unique power, and I do like how it combines a stealthier and trap-based style with a chase focus. It's a cool combination of the two usual sides of powers. I think playing as him definitely is less fun, as it's often very tense and requires a lot of drive to play him, with there just being so many punishing elements against him like the EMPs. I like this placement though. Blight 78.9%. Blight is a character I think people enjoy because it's such fast-paced gameplay for both sides. You need to be effective at loops on both sides with a Blight in the game. You need to know the tiles, and it becomes much more focused on your knowledge and looping ability than it does on a character's inability to down someone before gens get done, which I think is more fun. Executioner 79.5%. Executioner is a character which I think is just very balanced. He does have strong attacks and elements, but these are often signaled well for the other side, so although they are strong abilities, there's also enough for the survivors to do something about it too. Overall he feels balanced, and that's why I think he's perceived as fun. Dredge 79.9%. Dredge gets a high placement here, and I think it's down to it being actually very atmospheric and pretty scary a lot of the time to face, and feeling scary when you play it, going around as this abomination. The Nightfall mechanic is a lot of fun and changes the flow of gameplay a lot of the time, and interaction around lockers also becomes a lot more engaging when Dredge is in the game. Oni 82.1%. Oni is higher than I expected him to be. I do find him enjoyable to play, with his speed and insta-down potential. I also find him pretty fun to face, with only some occasions where the hits can feel a little unfair. Largely he's fun I guess, unless you happen to be running no mither. Nemesis 82.8%. Nemesis is a character I'm a little surprised to see so high too. Personally, I had a long streak of not liking facing or playing him, to be honest, but he's grown on me a lot. My only complaint really for Nemi is that Tentacle can sometimes feel a little unavoidable when facing him, but often this can be worked around with mind games on both sides, which is nice. And again, fun. Wesker 83.7%. Wesker is a great example of a character who is strong, but also fun for both sides. I think in this case too, part of what makes Wesker fun is the immersion and the quips he makes, paired alongside his fun and chase-focused gameplay. You can make interesting plays as him, but you can also counter him fairly too, with his well-signaled power. Demogorgon 93.1%. Demo being the highest doesn't surprise me all too much, and I do think there's a bit of bias here with nostalgia and the now removed state of Demo playing a part. With that said, I do think Demo is very balanced, and so ultimately many find it very fun on both sides, which is completely fair. Alright, well that's gonna do it. Let me know your thoughts too, down below. Thanks, and goodbye.